Xander Zane sat on the edge of the rusting park bench, elbows on his knees, watching his 5-year-old daughter twirl in the grass with her stuffed flamingo. "Careful, Fallon," he called as she stumbled, then caught herself and burst into giggles. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his messy dark hair. His worn jacket hung open, the weathered fabric doing little to block the chill in the late afternoon breeze. His boots were scuffed, his jeans a little too faded, but he didn't care. He was just glad Fallon had a day she could feel like a kid again. He didn't notice the woman until she sat down on the other end of the bench. "Cute kid," she said softly, her voice calm, like honey stirred into warm tea. He turned, a little startled. She wore a simple black coat, dark jeans, and ankle boots, but something about her posture, elegant, poised, made her seem out of place among the cracked swings and crumbling sandbox. "Thanks," he said, keeping his tone polite. "She's my whole world." The woman smiled but didn't look at him. She watched Fallon with a faraway look, like she was seeing something else, or someone else. "She reminds me of my sister's daughter," she said. "You got kids?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, just work." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, work. I used to have a lot of that too." She glanced at him then, really looked. His tired eyes, the slight stubble, the fraying collar of his shirt, but also the way his eyes lit up every time Fallon laughed. That hit her harder than she expected. "I'm Riley Lane," she said, offering her hand. He shook it. "Xander Zane. And that's Fallon." Fallon waved from the grass. "Hi, lady." Riley waved back, her smile softening. "She's got a big personality." "Yeah," Xander chuckled. "She didn't get it from me." They sat in silence for a moment, only the sound of the breeze and Fallon's chatter filling the space between them. "You come here often?" she asked. "Every Saturday. It's the only day I don't have to juggle 3 side jobs." She blinked. 3. Yard work, delivery, and I do odd jobs whenever I can. It's barely enough to keep the lights on. But Fallon deserves more than just barely. Riley looked at him, and her chest tightened. There was no bitterness in his voice, no self-pity, just quiet determination. "You doing it alone?" she asked gently. "My wife passed right after Fallon turned 2. Car accident." He didn't look at her when he said it, just stared at his daughter like it hurt too much to say the words out loud. "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded once. "Thanks." Another beat of silence. Then she asked, "What did you do before all this?" "Software engineer," he said. "I used to work for a firm downtown. But when Fallon got sick a while back, I missed too much work. Got replaced." And they don't exactly line up to hire single dads with gaps in their resume. Riley's heart pulled. She looked at the man beside her, the stranger, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Longing, not just for him, but for what he had. For the kind of love she'd never let herself want. "Fallon's lucky," she said softly. He finally turned to her. "I don't know about that." "I do." She offered a small, warm smile that made something in his chest tighten. "Enough about me," he said. "What do you do?" She hesitated. "I'm in management." He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds vague." "Yeah, well, people tend to look at you differently when they find out you run a billion-dollar company." He laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. "Wait, what?" She looked at him sideways, her expression unreadable. "CEO of Lane Tech." He stared at her. "You're Riley Lane?" "Like the Riley Lane." She shrugged. "Yup." He blinked. "But you're sitting on a park bench." "I like quiet places," she said simply. "And I was tired of being surrounded by people who only see dollar signs." He looked at her differently now. Not with awe, just confusion. "Why talk to me?" "Because you weren't trying to impress me, or ask for anything. You were just real." Fallon ran up to them then, cheeks rosy, hair wild. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" Xander glanced at Riley, then back at Fallon. Maybe next weekend, Buck. Daddy's a little tight on cash this week." Riley stood up and smiled at Fallon. "What's your favorite flavor?" "Mint chocolate chip." Riley turned to Xander. "Can I treat her?" "Just this once." He hesitated, pride flickering in his eyes. But Fallon was looking up at him with those big, hopeful eyes. He sighed. "All right. Just this once." Riley grinned. "Let's go." They walked together to the ice cream cart just outside the park. Riley didn't blink at the price. She paid in cash and handed Fallon the biggest mint chocolate chip cone she'd ever seen. "Thank you." Fallon beamed. Xander watched her, then turned to Riley. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she said. "But I wanted to. That night." After Fallon had fallen asleep in the back seat, Xander helped her into their apartment and tucked her in. As he stepped into the hallway, he saw Riley still standing outside, hands in her coat pockets. "Hey," he said. "Hey." They stood there for a second, the air heavy between them. "I like today," he said. "It's been a while since I talked to someone who didn't look at me like I was broken." "You're not," she said, stepping closer. "You're just trying. And that's more than most." He swallowed hard. "You're not what I expected." "Good," she whispered. "Because I'm tired of being what people expect." Their eyes locked, and for a second, it felt like the rest of the world disappeared. But instead of kissing her, he stepped back. "Maybe I'll see you next Saturday?" "I'll be here," she said, her heart already racing. Neither of them knew it yet, but that park bench had just changed everything. The following Saturday, Xander arrived at the park earlier than usual. Fallon tugged him toward the swings, her little boots kicking up leaves as they crunched through the grass. He kept checking the path near the entrance, trying not to look like he was waiting. But he was. When Riley finally appeared, she looked different. Not in the way she dressed, still simple, understated, but something in her eyes had shifted. Less guarded, more curious. She walked toward them with a coffee in each hand. "Morning," she said, handing him one. He accepted it with a quiet, "Thanks," and tried not to stare. She wasn't wearing makeup, and her hair was pulled back, a few strands slipping loose. It made her look younger, softer. "I wasn't sure if you'd show," he admitted, watching Fallon pump her legs on the swing. "I wasn't sure either," she said. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you." His eyebrows lifted slightly, but he didn't respond right away. Instead, he took a sip of the coffee. It was good, smooth. Different from the cheap stuff he usually made on his stovetop. Riley sat beside him on the bench, this time closer than before. Her shoulder didn't quite touch his, but it was close enough that he could feel the heat of her body through his jacket. "You said you used to be a software engineer," she said, watching Fallon with him. "Have you tried freelancing? Consulting?" "I've looked into it," he said. "But without updated credentials or recent projects, it's hard to convince anyone to take a chance." "What if someone did?" He turned to her. "You offering me a job?" "Maybe," she said. "I steady. But not because I feel sorry for you." "Then why?" "Because I think you've got more grit than half the executives I sit across from every week." He laughed, but it wasn't mocking. "That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me this year." "Don't get used to it," she said, but there was a glimmer of playfulness in her voice. Fallon ran up just then, cheeks flushed. "Daddy, can you push me again?" Xander stood up and followed her to the swing, but not before looking back at Riley. "You sticking around? I've got nowhere else I'd rather be." Later, when Fallon was chasing a squirrel across the grass, Riley leaned in a little. "You don't ask me much about my life," she said. Xander shrugged. "I figure if you want to talk about it, you will." "That's rare. I'm not trying to impress you." "I know." She paused. "But I kind of want to impress you." He looked at her, surprised. "Why?" "Because you're the only person I've met in the last 5 years who sees me without calculating what I'm worth." He fell quiet. Then he said, "Everyone wants something from someone." "Maybe, but I think you want something real. That's what scares me." He looked back at Fallon. "I lost a lot when my wife died. Not just her, I lost the version of me I was with her. I didn't think I'd ever want someone again. And now." He didn't answer, not with words, but the way his eyes lingered on hers said enough. "Come on," she said suddenly. "Let me show you something." He hesitated. "What about Fallon? I called a friend on the way here. She's a nanny. I had a feeling you'd hesitate." He didn't move. "She'll be 10 feet away the whole time," Riley added. "You can check on her whenever you want." "I don't know. Trust me for an hour. That's all I'm asking." He relented, but only after Fallon waved goodbye to him without a second thought, already absorbed in a story the nanny was telling her. Riley led him to a black SUV parked just beyond the edge of the park. A driver opened the door without a word. "This feels a little intense," Xander muttered as he climbed in beside her. She didn't respond until the car pulled away. "I want to show you my world." Just a glimpse. They drove in silence for a while. The city blurred past outside glass towers, boutiques, polished sidewalks. This wasn't Xander's world. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. When they finally stopped, the car pulled up in front of a sleek building with no signage. A doorman opened it before they even stepped out. Inside, the elevator opened directly into a gallery-like space, floor-to-ceiling windows, abstract art, gleaming floors. It was so quiet it felt like the place breathed. "This is your office?" he asked. "One of them." She walked him down a hallway lined with framed patents and design blueprints. At the end, she opened a door into a room that looked like a command center: monitors, prototypes, sketches pinned to walls. "This is where I build things," she said. "Where I make choices that affect thousands of people." He turned slowly, taking it all in. "It's incredible." "I wanted you to see this," she said. "Not to impress you, but to show you that I'm not just some rich woman who buys ice cream for strangers. You're a lot more than that," he said quietly. Then, after a pause, "Why me?" Her gaze met his. "Because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I'm performing." He stepped closer, unsure what to do with the feeling building in his chest. She whispered, "Do you feel it too?" He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "Yeah, I do." But just then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, checked the screen, and his expression darkened. "Is everything all right?" she asked. "It's Fallon," he said. "She's not feeling well. I need to get back. I'll have the car take you now." A moment later, they were racing back across the city. His hands were clenched in his lap, jaw tight. When they reached the park, Fallon was sitting on the bench with the nanny, looking pale, her hand on her stomach. He scooped her up. "I've got you, Bug. We're going home." Riley touched his arm. "Let me send a pediatrician to your place." "No," he said, not unkindly. "Thank you, but I've got it. I can handle this." She nodded, stepping back, giving him space. But as he walked away, her eyes didn't leave him. And for the first time in years, she felt the ache of wanting someone to stay. Xander hadn't heard from Riley in over a week. Not a call, not a visit to the park, not a word. He wasn't sure what stung more, the silence or the fact that he'd started to expect her. He should have known better. People like her didn't linger in the lives of men like him. Whatever had been stirring between them had faded as quickly as it came. Fallon was feeling better now. A stomach bug, the nurse at the clinic had said. She was back to her usual whirlwind self, painting glitter all over the kitchen table and making up songs about flamingos in outer space. But even she noticed something was off. "Is the lady coming back?" she asked one night, brushing her teeth with purple foam around her lips. Xander hesitated. "I don't know, Bug. She was nice." "Yeah," he said. "She was." That night, after Fallon fell asleep with her arm around her flamingo and her forehead cool again, Xander sat at the kitchen table, staring at the papers spread in front of him. A stack of overdue utility bills, a rejection letter from yet another consulting firm, and an envelope from a network provider threatening to cut service. He rubbed his face. He was running out of options. The next morning, he opened his email and found a message from an unfamiliar name. The subject line was simple: referral for contract work. He clicked it, expecting spam, but the body of the message was short and direct. A job offer, remote, flexible hours, high pay. It referenced his old portfolio. His breath hitched. No one had looked at that in years. He read the footer. The company name was one he recognized, a Lane Tech subsidiary. He leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. She hadn't disappeared. She just stepped back. He almost didn't respond. His pride flared. But Fallon's face came to mind, the soft way she'd asked about Riley. And the truth settled in his chest. He couldn't afford to let pride get in the way of a chance. He accepted the job. 3 days later, he was called into the downtown building for onboarding. The office wasn't in the same tower as Riley's, but it was still sleek and quiet, the kind of place with glass walls and espresso machines that looked like something from a spaceship. He wore his best shirt, one that still held the faint scent of laundry soap and time. The HR rep greeted him warmly, walking him through the details. His contract was generous, his title temporary but promising, and the laptop they handed him was newer than anything he'd ever owned. His head spun. As he was leaving the lobby, he heard her voice. "Didn't expect to see you here this fast." He turned. Riley stood near the elevator in a charcoal coat, her arms crossed loosely in front of her, her expression unreadable. "I wasn't sure I was going to come," he said. "I didn't want to push you," she replied. "I just wanted the door to be open. You sent the offer." "I sent the opportunity," she corrected. "You earned the offer on your own." He nodded, tension easing. "Thank you." She tilted her head. "You mad at me?" He exhaled. "No. Just confused. You disappeared. I didn't want to complicate things while Fallon was sick," she said. "And I needed time to think." "About what?" "This," she said. "You. Me. Whether I was ready to let someone into my life who wasn't chasing what I could give them, but who could actually make me feel something real. He studied her. And are you? I'm not sure, she admitted, but I don't want to walk away without trying. He stepped forward slowly. You want to try over coffee? Her lips curved gently. There's a place 2 blocks from here. No board members. No photographers. Just terrible scones and strong espresso. I'll take it, he said. They walked the city blocks in silence, their steps in sync, the tension between them softer now. The cafe was narrow, tucked between a bookstore and a florist. Inside, a bell chimed as they entered, and the scent of cinnamon and espresso wrapped around them. They sat at a small table near the back, away from the windows. Riley peeled off her coat, revealing a slate blue blouse with sleeves rolled to her elbows. There was a pin tucked behind her ear. She looked nothing like the woman in Forbes, which, somehow, made her more arresting. I've never done this before, she said. Not like this. Me neither, he admitted. With someone who makes the world tilt a little. She smiled at that. I've been told I'm intense. You are. And you're not intimidated? She asked. I'm a single father who's made dinner out of saltines and ketchup. I've been through worse. She laughed, a sound that turned heads. Fair. He leaned in slightly. Can I ask you something? Anything. What scares you the most? Losing control, she said without hesitation. My life has always been about structure. Plans. Deliverables. But lately, I've been wondering if I built all of that to avoid feeling things I couldn't control. He nodded. Like love. Exactly. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you're not the only one. They sat in the comfort of that honesty for a while, sipping their coffee. Then she said, Would you let me meet Fallon again? Outside the park. He looked at her carefully. This isn't just curiosity for you, is it? No, she said. I want to know both of you. Not just the man who makes me forget I'm supposed to have walls. He leaned back, considering. You cook. I burn toast. He smiled. Then Friday night, spaghetti at my place. She raised an eyebrow. You sure? I'm sure. That night, as he walked the streets back to the bus stop, laptop in hand, coat flapping in the wind, he felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Hope. Not for riches. Not for rescue. But for something real. Something he thought he buried. And somewhere up in that glass tower, a woman who had everything was waiting for exactly the same thing. Fallon stood on her tiptoes, peering through the oven window as the lasagna baked. Her small hands pressed against the counter while Xander gently stirred a pot of garlic butter on the stove, his sleeves rolled up, shoulders relaxed in a way they rarely were. She's gonna like this, Fallon whispered, as if the woman they were waiting for might hear. He leaned down. You think so, bud? Fallon nodded solemnly. She's fancy, but she likes you anyway. Xander raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? It means you don't have shiny shoes or a loud car, but she still looked at you with her heart. He blinked, a little stunned. Where'd you get that from? I watched a movie once where a queen did that. He gave a quiet laugh, then kissed her forehead. You're a little too wise for 5. There was a knock on the door. Xander straightened, wiped his hands on a towel, and opened it. Riley stood there holding a single sunflower, her coat unbuttoned to reveal a soft gray sweater tucked into dark trousers. She looked nothing like the woman who'd built an empire. She looked like someone choosing to be there, not someone passing through. For you, she said, offering the sunflower. He accepted it carefully, then stepped aside. Come in. The apartment was modest, but warm. A string of paper stars hung across the window, handmade by Fallon. The couch had a few mismatched cushions, and the floor was polished in places from years of pacing. Riley took it in without judgment, only quiet affection. Fallon ran up and threw her arms around Riley's waist. You came. I missed you, Jellybean, Riley said, crouching down to hug her back. You feeling better? Fallon nodded. I made name cards for dinner. Yours has glitter. I'm honored, Riley said with a soft laugh. Dinner was imperfect. The garlic bread was a little too crisp on the edges, and Fallon spilled a drop of juice on her name card halfway through. But the laughter, the quiet glances between Xander and Riley, those were perfect. After Fallon fell asleep on the couch, her head resting against her flamingo and glitter still dusting her sweater, Xander gently carried her to bed. When he returned, Riley was standing by the window, her hand tracing the paper stars. She's extraordinary, she said without turning. I know, he replied, stepping beside her. Riley's voice lowered. I used to think I'd never want this. A child. A home. The quiet. I thought ambition and solitude made me strong. He didn't speak. He let her find the words. But lately, I've been thinking that maybe real strength is letting yourself want something uncertain. Something that can't be calculated or scaled. He watched her, the weight in her expression. I want this, she whispered. Not as a break from my world, but as part of it. Xander looked at her. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. But I don't want to bulldoze my way in. I want to be invited. He moved closer, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Then stay. Her eyes met his, full of something raw and open. You're not afraid? I'm terrified, he said. But Fallon loves you. And I think I might be falling for you too. Her breath caught. Then fall. He kissed her. Not with hesitation, not with caution, but with the weight of every unsaid word that had built between them. When they pulled apart, the world felt quieter, as if it had shifted to make room for them. Weeks passed. Riley began spending more time at Xander's apartment than her penthouse. She still ran Lane Tech, still made high-stakes decisions in boardrooms and negotiated with foreign investors across time zones, but now she also helped with homework, learned how to braid hair, and burned pancakes on Sunday mornings. One evening, as they walked through the park where it had all started, Fallon skipped ahead, chasing the last amber leaves of autumn. Xander stopped beneath the tree where they'd first met. Remember this bench? He asked. Riley nodded. I remember everything about that day. I didn't know who you were, he said, turning to face her. But I knew you were different. She took his hand. I knew you were exactly what I needed. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her eyes widened, but he didn't drop to one knee. This isn't a proposal, he said. Not yet. It's a promise. That I see you. Not the company. Not the public face. Just you. And I want you in Fallon's life. In mine. However this unfolds. She opened the box. Inside, tucked into the velvet, was a delicate gold chain with a tiny sunflower charm. I love you, she whispered. He smiled. I love you too. Fallon ran up and wrapped her arms around both of them. Are we a family now? Riley knelt beside her. If you want me to be. Fallon nodded. You're already my favorite lady. Later that winter, Riley stood in front of a crowded ballroom filled with executives, investors, and media. She adjusted the mic, her gaze sweeping the room. I've built my life around precision and control, she began. But the best decision I ever made was stepping away from all of it one afternoon and sitting on a park bench. She looked to the side of the stage, where Xander stood in a tailored navy suit, Fallon resting against his side, proud and beaming. That day, I met someone who reminded me what it means to truly live. Not with strategy, but with heart. The crowd erupted in applause. And when the lights dimmed and the cameras turned away, she walked straight into Xander's arms with no need for words. Together, they had built something no boardroom could measure. A life. A home. A love that had started on a bench and grown into everything they never dared to dream. Fallon stood at the window, tracing circles on the glass with her finger as snowflakes drifted down like pieces of a glittering puzzle. The city outside was hushed beneath a blanket of white, the streets muffled and serene. Inside the apartment, the warmth of cinnamon and vanilla wafted from the oven, where a batch of cookies Riley and Fallon had baked together slowly browned. Xander glanced over from the couch, where he was bent over a laptop, finishing the last of a code patch for the new Lane Tech project. His brows were furrowed in concentration, but the edge of his mouth lifted slightly watching Fallon narrate a story about snow princesses to her flamingo, now dressed in a scarf made of old yarn Riley had brought over. Riley emerged from the hallway, phone in hand, her face unreadable. Something wrong? Xander asked, closing the laptop. She shook her head. No, just left a message for the board. I told them I'm taking a step back. He sat up straighter. What kind of step back? A real one, she said. I've been grooming someone for months. She's ready. I'll still be involved, but I want time. For us. He studied her. You sure? I don't want to miss this, she said, motioning toward Fallon by the window. Or you. He stood and crossed the room, his voice low. It's a big change. I've made bigger ones for far less, she replied. At least this time, it's for something worth everything. He reached for her hand and brought it to his chest. You already gave me more than I ever thought I'd have again. I'm not giving you anything, she said. I'm choosing you. That's different. Before he could reply, Fallon ran up, eyes wide. Can we go outside? Please? I want to make a snow flamingo family. Riley laughed, crouching to zip up her daughter's coat. Only if you let me name one. You can name the one with the crooked wing, Fallon said proudly. By the time they stepped into the courtyard behind the building, the snow had thickened. The three of them piled snow into lumpy shapes, Riley insisting on giving each flamingo a backstory, while Xander built a tiny snow cafe for them to visit. Fallon declared it the best snow day in the history of ever, and Riley caught the moment on her phone, saving the photo to a hidden album labeled Us. Later, after warm baths and mismatched pajamas, Riley tucked Fallon in, gently brushing damp curls from her forehead. Do you know what tomorrow is? Fallon asked sleepily. No, what? It's the day we go look at the new house. Riley blinked. You remember that? Daddy said it has a yard for flamingo parades. Riley smiled, her voice soft. He's right. Xander stepped into the doorway. She's wired about it. Been asking for days. You nervous? Riley asked him once Fallon drifted off. That we'll live in a place with more than one bathroom? He snorted. Terrified. She leaned into him. It's just a house, Xander. No, he said, wrapping his arms around her waist. It's a beginning. The next morning, a sleek SUV Riley had sent pulled up in front of the modest brick building they'd called home for years. Fallon clutched her flamingo in one hand and Riley's hand in the other. Xander held the keys, his heart pounding. The house stood on a quiet street, framed by towering trees and dusted in snow. It had a wide porch, a swing already installed, and windows that gleamed in the morning light. The inside smelled of fresh paint and pine. There was a fireplace in the living room, and upstairs, a bedroom for Fallon with a tiny built-in reading nook Riley had commissioned after learning about her love of fairy tales. Fallon disappeared into the backyard, where a small garden plot lay dormant beneath the snow. We can grow sunflowers in spring, she shouted back. Riley turned to Xander. You all right? He nodded, blinking hard. I just didn't think this would ever be mine. It's not, she said. It's ours. They moved in by the end of the week. Riley's things filled the kitchen cabinets and lined the shelves in the study. Xander set up a workspace in the den, the tech from his new job seamlessly integrated into the home. Fallon displayed her drawings on the fridge, declaring herself head designer of house decorations. One evening in early spring, as the first crocuses pushed through the thawing earth, Xander called Riley to the back porch. She stepped outside, her sweater sleeves pushed to her elbows, a pencil still tucked behind her ear from helping Fallon with a school project. He was standing by the porch swing, holding something behind his back. Remember when I told you that sunflower necklace was a promise? He asked. She nodded slowly. He pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a ring delicate, with a single diamond flanked by two tiny golden petals. The band was etched with a pattern that matched the one Fallon had drawn for Riley's birthday card. I meant that promise, he said. But now I want to make it official. I want to marry you. Tears welled in her eyes. You sure this is the life you want? I've never been more sure of anything, he said. You, Fallon. This home, it's everything I never thought I'd get to have again. She took the ring, tears slipping down her cheeks, and slid it onto her finger. Then yes. Absolutely yes. Fallon burst from the back door, barefoot and shrieking. Did you ask her? Xander laughed. I did. And she said yes? She did. Fallon threw her arms around both of them and shouted. We're going to be a real family with cake and dancing and everything. They married in the backyard that summer. The ceremony was small, just close friends, a few of Riley's colleagues, and the neighbors Fallon had adopted as honorary grandparents. Riley wore a simple ivory dress, her hair pinned with fresh sunflowers. Xander wore a navy suit, his tie crooked thanks to Fallon's last-minute styling. Fallon walked down the aisle first, holding both her parents' hands, her flamingo tucked under her arm with a tiny flower crown Riley had made. They exchanged vows under the arbor Riley had built with Xander on a weekend filled with laughter, paint, and very uneven hammering. When they kissed, the guests erupted in cheers. Fallon clapped so hard she nearly dropped the flamingo. That night, as lanterns swayed in the trees and music floated through the open windows, Riley and Xander danced barefoot on the grass, their foreheads touching, the world fading away around them. I used to think love was something you had to protect yourself from, she whispered. And now I know it's the only thing worth running toward. They looked over to see Fallon asleep in a lawn chair, the flamingo still in her arms, her sunflower crown slipping sideways. Xander kissed Riley's temple. We did good. We did perfect, she whispered. And as the stars bloomed above them, they held each other close, with nothing left to prove, and everything ahead of them to love.